just to put things into perspective, in Spain, if 100 people get married today, they are expected to have somewhere between 55 and 60 children. And then their children are expected to have around 32, 33 children. And their children are expected to have 18 or 19 children. This is what the science tells us at the moment. So by the time you get to the fourth generation, 81% of your population is gone. That is not a good news. That cannot be a good news. And this is a direct result of liberalism and individualism, where people think freely about themselves, not collectively about the society and the survival. How do I see future of the Western civilization? Well, lots and lots of gadgets, lots and lots of iPhones, but not many people using them. That's how I see the future of the West. Science, technology, health systems, education systems, those are great things to measure the quality of a given civilization. But ultimately, what you need is people, populations. You need populations for all these things to matter. So far as the West is concerned, they have achieved some great many things, some commendable things. But when it comes to the population, which is the ultimate requirement for any civilization to not just to survive, but also to thrive, West is pretty weak in that regard. All civilizations collapse. Western civilization will collapse as well. But the experts of the collapse of civilizations, they have identified three things, and they are pretty unique to the West. And those three things include the insurmountable debt, population decline, and innovation deficit. Now, innovation deficit itself is not a huge problem, even though a lot of latest technology is coming from Far East and Japan, and West is yet to produce something which is groundbreaking, which it used to do in 60s and 70s and 80s. By that, I'm not saying that the West is really lacking in technology. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is that it isn't as breakthrough as it was once, but that itself is not a big problem. You can put a lot more investment. You can draw brilliant brains from around the world, and West is comfortable. It can do that part. But the other two problems are serious ones: the debt and the population decline. There is no solution to it. For just to put things into perspective, for a population to stay as it is, the required fertility rate is, different studies show 2.1 and 2.2. So, which is to say that on an average, each woman should have 2.1 or 2.2 children for population to stay in its current state. So this is the replacement population volume. This is a ratio, apologies. This is not to say that the population will go up. This is to say that the population will remain the same. And before you say, got him there, you can't have 2.1 or 0.2 children. Yeah, of course you cannot, but I'm just giving you a mathematical average. Just know that each woman must have 2.1 or 2.2 children. So this is what is, on an average, is what the requirement is. West is falling way, way short of it. I mean, the highest at the moment is in France, and even that is well below 2.1. It's 1.9, and that is highest. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, you have Italy and Spain, where you have close to 1.1, 1.2, which is very, very dangerous. And that is not a good news. It can't be a good news for the West. And, there's a serious question that, are you going to have in 100 years' time or 200 years' time, maybe, are you even going to have a civilization? I mean, if you look at Spain, for example, just to put things into perspective, that how what the source of the problem is, the lifestyle of the West, and how it is having an adverse impact on the West itself. And I'm referring to liberalism and individualism, and how people of the West have stopped thinking about the societies and communities long ago, when everything became self-centered and every individual became center of his or her own universe. And things such as altruism and all those things progressively went out of the window. Individualism took everything, and the result of that now is that everybody thinks about their own success. Children hamper your success. Building communities hamper. It's a direct hindrance to your development. Therefore, those things should not happen. And this is what has been happening in the West for so long. Just to give you, just to put things into perspective, in Spain, if 100 people get married today, they are expected to have somewhere between 55 and 60 children, less than 60. And then their children are expected to have around 32, 33 children. And their children are expected to have 18 or 19 children. This is what the science tells us at the moment. So by the time you get to the fourth generation, 81% of your population is gone. That is not a good news. That cannot be a good news. And this is a direct result of liberalism and individualism, where people think freely about themselves, not collectively about the society and the survival. And, all civilizations collapse. Western civilization will collapse too. But what is interesting is that, on an average, average age of a civilization is somewhere between 330 and 340 years. And the West actually is, if we apply that maths on the Western civilization, it actually is pretty much on its collapse now. It's not going to survive for long. And Western civilization, of course, with this much of time they have enjoyed as the dominating civilization and exporting their values and creating international institutes just to promote the Western values in the world. That includes United Nations and a number of other international bodies. But now the situation is that it's coming to its end, and it's not coming to end because of some external threat. It is coming, it is, the decline or extinction is coming in form of internal wrong decisions. If this is not unprecedented, it certainly is rare. We had Roman civilization, we had Persian civilizations. Fair enough, they had internal problems that weakened those civilizations to the extent that the external forces were able to overcome them. But West is not facing any external threat. And US loves to export wars and conflict and skirmishes around its enemies, be it Russia or China, keeps them busy locally. But they themselves they've secured themselves, all the Western nations, particularly Europe and the US and Canada, that we are not going to have any of those problems, which is fair enough. But the internal problems, it's just amazing that not having enough children, for crying out loud. How intelligent does one have to be to understand that for you to be able to survive and thrive, you need babies? You can't make it any simpler than that. Go to Spain today, you see villages and villages empty. Nobody lives there. Just structures, roads, houses, no population. That cannot be a good news. It simply cannot be a good news, and this is exactly what is happening in the West at the moment. So I just sometimes think that what happens 500 years down the line, or 1,000 years down the line, when the Western civilization is no longer there. What will historians write about the Western civilization? And my assessment is, my thinking is that they will write that the Western civilization had been one of the best civilizations ever to have existed when it came to development, when it came to making technology and using science and all amazing things that they've done for human beings. But then they also neglected those very human beings, and that negligence came in the form of producing children, in the form of, well, I should say, not producing children, not reproducing enough to survive. So it is unbelievable that you invest billions upon billions of dollars and pounds and euros to make better systems for human beings, but then you don't think about those human beings. Where will they be 200 years down the line or 300 years down the line? That's just bizarre.